If you're struggling to quit drinking now and you need help, if you've struggled in the past, or if you want to help someone who is struggling right now, this course is going to puncture the bubble of confusing and dangerous misinformation that surrounds the alcohol and the quit alcohol industries. It gives you an insight into why you drink and exactly what you need to do to stop. The Greek philosopher Evenus said, "Habit, my friend, is practice long pursued, that at last becomes man himself." Welcome to the How to Stop Drinking Alcohol video course. It's amazing to me now, looking back at all my years as a drinker, that I never saw a problem in what I was doing to myself or to those around me. I started drinking alcohol back in the late 1970s, and I stopped at the beginning of 2013. Now, in all that time, over 30 years, right up until I finally quit, I never thought I'd stop drinking or that I would ever really want to stop drinking. Now, I'm sure it's something that you can empathize with. Drinking alcohol was just normal for me. I didn't call it alcohol. We don't say, "I'm off to the bar for some alcohol." For me, it was, "I'm off to the bar for a few pints." Now, having a few pints at the weekend was normal for me. Then it became having a few pints at the end of the working days. Then it became having a few pints at the end of any day. Then it became having a few pints or a glass of wine, having a bottle of wine, having some shots, maybe both, maybe all. Now, towards the end of my drinking life, when I did realize that I had a problem, I automatically thought that there was something wrong with me personally. I thought that I was just one of those people who couldn't handle alcohol. Now, that line of thinking doesn't come about by accident. Believing that I was an alcoholic, thinking that I probably had an addictive brain and that there was very little I could do about it, is an integral part of the culture that we live in, this alcoholic consuming culture. Now, we've all been programmed to think that way. We've been programmed to think that putting a poison into our bodies so that we can feel inebriated is just normal. We've been programmed to believe that it's a normal part of our everyday lives, that getting drunk is normal, that the hangover is normal, that drinking this toxin is manly, that it's fun, that it's expected. Now, as I'll show you throughout this course, that programming started right from the day that you were born. It started before you were born, but for you it started on that day. The truth is that every alcohol drinker has been captured by the same level of programming. We always think about the propaganda of alcohol use coming exclusively from the alcohol companies, that we're swayed by their sexy advertising. In fact, the alcohol companies have a very simple job in convincing us to start drinking this stuff and to continue to drink it despite the negative effects that we get in those first few sessions. The world spinning, the vomiting, the sickness, and all that kind of stuff that happens to you when you first start drinking. And, us saying to ourselves, "Oh no, I'm never going to drink again." How many times have you said that to yourself? Of course, once you don't feel sick, once you can drink without feeling sick anymore, and, the hangover wears off, it's a completely different story. We all forget the pain. So the alcohol companies don't need to do very much to get us to drink and keep drinking until it becomes a habit that we find ourselves in the middle of right now. Now, they don't need to do much because by the time we get to taking our first sip of alcohol, we've already been well and truly hooked into the alcoholic culture. Your habitual addiction to this drug has been slowly brewing from the day that you were born. Now, we'll look at this in much more detail throughout this video course. Now that I've stopped drinking, I'm loving every minute of it. You'll find that as well. With all my doubts and anxieties about a life without alcohol, Once the programming was laid bare and I saw alcohol drinking for what it was, a very destructive drug habit, quitting the stuff actually turned out to be very simple. You know, once you get over the need to drink, the desire to carry on putting the stuff into your body, contrary to your own sort of common sense, and you find the motivation to turn your back on alcohol forever, you'll also love every single minute of you being alcohol free, of this new alcohol free lifestyle, because you know where you've come from, you know where you started, you know what has led you to take your decision to quit in the first place. Now, hopefully with the help of this material, you'll find an understanding of what alcohol is really doing to yourself as a person and to your life, how the way you think about alcohol has developed and what you can do about it. Now, quitting alcohol is extremely liberating. You know, your whole life will change when you alter your alcohol perceptions and you see what destruction your alcohol use has been causing. Now, that's the essence of what this video course is all about. Opening your mind to the use of alcohol and how it's used in our society, and how you can stop drinking alcohol just completely and not think about it ever again, and just live a different life. So what we're going to cover in this series of video tutorials, I'm going to take you through some of my story. I'll tell you about myself and my drinking, my family and their drinking, and what eventually occurred in my life that stopped me just dead in my tracks and finally opened me up to the realization of what I was doing to myself and causing to happen in my life. Then we'll take a look at alcohol in our culture. How come you readily accept your first drink and just keep on doing it regardless of any negative consequences? Then we'll look at the alcohol itself, how much blame you can put onto it. We'll examine the highly publicized and dubious claims made by the alcohol industry, backed by many laboratories and sort of pseudo-scientists. Then we'll take a look at moderation in your drinking and the frame of mind that that puts you into. We'll also take a look at the language of addiction, or the language of habit. We'll look at how you can be your own best friend, or you can be your worst enemy when it comes to how you use your own language on yourself and to others. We'll take a look at the terms alcoholic, recovery, sober, symptoms and cravings, side effects, and all those other medically grounded words, and how they have no place in your vocabulary. I'll talk a little bit about the demon drink and hitting rock bottom. Now, one of the biggest issues with anyone who's just about to embark on this new journey is fear. Now, mostly these fears are aggravated and intensified by the quit alcohol industry, who want you to believe that we all fit into this same bucket, that we're all susceptible to terrible withdrawal symptoms, unbearable cravings, and even run the very real risk of dying because we've stopped drinking. Now, I'll spend a lot of time on this course talking about overcoming these fears by understanding what it is that you're going to be going through. Now, in short, you're much more likely to die early if you continue to pursue the path of drinking alcohol than if you stop. Now, you'll see that for the vast majority of us, the hangovers are about as bad as the actual physical discomfort is ever going to get, and you're leaving that behind. You'll also see that for the vast majority of us, the psychological symptoms are what you really have to concentrate your energies on defeating. It's basically all in your control. In other words, you can do this because the majority of what will happen to you over the coming days, weeks and months is in your head. It's all about trying to deal with the thoughts and that kind of thing that comes up in your head. Now, we'll look at a couple of strategies for calming your fears. And once you've quit, once the last of the booze has been just eliminated from your body and from your life, you have to deal with your recovery period, and we'll talk about that. Now, most people talk about recovery like it's something to dread. It's not. It's the body, your body responding to the new environment that it finds itself in, the environment where your liver is not fighting day and night to survive anymore, where your blood cleans itself, well, when your system cleans the blood up, and where your systems begin to function as they should do. Now, your body is going to heal itself, and it's very good at doing what it does. You know, once you get out of the way and once you stop trying to pollute it with the toxins. And finally, I'm going to talk about some of the mindsets that will help you to take you into the next phase of your life, into your own future. And we'll look at your responsibility, how you view discomfort, and some of the habit memories that you're going to get from time to time. So with that in mind, there's every reason to start your journey feeling very happy about your decision to quit. So here's some things to think about. How have you been programmed to accept alcohol into your life as a normal part of your life through your parents, your family, your friends, and in the wider world? Now think about how different your life is going to be once you stop. How do you feel about not having alcohol in your life anymore? Are you afraid of quitting? Are you looking forward to it? A bit of both. How do you think your life will change? And how do you think your relationships will change? Now, in the next video, we're going to take a look at your decision to quit, your addiction to alcohol, calling yourself an alcoholic, and some of the other important lessons that you'll learn throughout this course. The last video was a general introduction to the How to Stop Drinking Alcohol video course. We looked at what to expect from this course and from your new journey. In this video, we're going to take a look at your decision to quit, your addiction to alcohol, calling yourself an alcoholic, and some of the more important lessons that you'll learn throughout this course. So why should you feel happy about quitting alcohol, about giving up alcohol? Because you're not really giving anything up. You're eliminating a deadly substance from your life. Now, this drug is a toxin. It's a poison. It's something that will cut your life short in more ways than one. It will also dilute the quality of your life every day you put the stuff into your body. Now, every single drop that you drink contaminates your body and it contaminates your mind. Alcohol screws around with your relationships, your work life, your home life, your sex life, among just the many other things in your life that's going to be affected. Now, deliberately consuming this toxin, taking it into your body of your own free will, just for the sake of the drunkenness feeling that it gives you, corrupts your perceptions about yourself and about the world around you. Now, we don't even question what drunkenness is or what's going on inside our bodies when we feel drunk. You know, we like the feeling of drunkenness, and that's enough. You know, think about this for a second. What are the feelings that you get when you drink alcohol? The feeling that you get when you're drunk? I mean, what's that all about? You know, these are remarkably similar symptoms, feelings that a person goes through when they're having a stroke. Now, I'm not saying that you're going through stroke symptoms when you're drunk, but if you had the same feeling without taking a drug, you'd go to the hospital really, really quickly to get yourself checked out. But because we're acclimatized to putting this stuff into our bodies, because it's seen as normal in our society to do that, we don't bat an eyelid. We don't think about the actual physical effect or the mental effect of putting this stuff into our bodies. We don't think about the physical damage or the mental damage that we're doing by putting this stuff in our bodies. We don't think about the consequences to us or to those around us of our drinking or of our drunkenness, or the time and energy that we lose in our lives as a consequence of drinking and drunkenness. The time that we spend in the midst of a hangover, you know, and these hangovers are only going to get worse over time. So the blind acceptance of alcohol as a normal part of a healthy life contaminates the thinking of the next generation as well. And it perpetuates this sort of dangerous habit and dangerous thinking into the future. when we use alcohol around our children, we give them these double standards. On the one hand, we're telling them to stay away from drugs, and on the other hand, we're telling them it's okay to take this, one of the most harmful drugs out there. And that's because, for the most part, we don't look at taking alcohol as drug use. It's part of my life that I'm most ashamed of, teaching my son how to use alcohol. Now, the How to Stop Drinking Alcohol video course is going to show you that your so-called addiction to alcohol is mostly an illusion. Like your bottle of average strength beer, quitting drinking is only 5% about the alcohol. The other 95% involves making the changes to those parts of your life that have supported your alcohol drinking habit all down through these years. Now, we'll look at some of those parts throughout this course. And what about being an alcoholic? Are you an alcoholic now? Will you always be an alcoholic? If you choose to be an alcoholic for the rest of your life, that is exactly what you're going to be. If you think you're an alcoholic, how can you be anything different? If that's what your thought processes are, if that's what you think your life is, then that's basically what you're going to be. If you want to lead a life that does not rely on a drug to get you through the day, however, you can do that as well. You can turn your back on your old life and begin a new one. And just because you did something yesterday, it doesn't mean you have to do it today or tomorrow or the next day. Just because you defined yourself as a drinker yesterday, it doesn't mean that you need to continue to define yourself as a drinker. Simple switch in perception, that's all it takes. You don't need to hide from alcohol for the rest of your life, far from it. In this video course, I'm going to show you how alcohol is a dangerous drug, and it's got no part to play in a healthy or normal life, in your healthy or normal life. Now, I want to reassure you that you're not alone in this new journey that you're about to take. There are going to be times when you'll feel like you're the odd one out. You'll be at a party where everyone else seems to be drinking and getting drunk. You'll be in a restaurant and all the other patrons will seem like they're drinking wine or beer or cocktails, and there's you stuck with your water. Now, at times like these, just take a step back from your odd one out thinking and take a good look around you. You'll see, to your surprise, that not everyone is consuming alcohol. Far from it. It's something that you're quite blind to when you're drinking. When you drink alcohol, you don't see this. You presume that everyone else is drinking. You may even deliberately avoid those people who are not drinking, saying that they're no fun. Now, you'll see this with other people when you stop drinking. According to the World Health Organization, worldwide, 61.7% of the population aged 15 years or older has not drunk alcohol in the past 12 months. Now, in all World Health Organization regions, females are more often lifetime abstainers than males. So almost 2/3 of the population of the world just don't drink alcohol. Now, this report goes on to say that in general, the greater the economic wealth of a country, the more alcohol is consumed and the smaller number of abstainers that there are in that country. High-income countries have the highest alcohol per capita consumption and the highest prevalence of heavy episodic drinking among drinkers. Now, I'll leave it to you to come up to your own conclusions about that. Do we use more alcohol because we have more money, or are the pressures of our rich life of having all that money so much that we need to get drunk more than other people? I'm just talking about that from a societal level, not from an individual level. We have different amounts of money, but in general. Now, as for being alone in stopping drinking alcohol, there are millions of people who have already stopped without the need for outside help. They didn't need to be admitted to a hospital. They did not experience serious side effects or symptoms or any of that other stuff. And they stopped taking this drug without feeling any intense cravings to ever drink alcohol again. Now, all they needed was just a push in the right direction, whether that push came from themselves or from around them or from a source outside their immediate circle. Now, this course is all about finding your own push. So your own push in your own life or just in your own thinking. As I said earlier, quitting drinking alcohol is mostly in the mind. It's in your thoughts. If you can control your thoughts, you control your actions. Now, everything we do starts out with a thought. But in order for those thoughts to push us on in our lives, they have to be converted into actions. Thomas Jefferson once said, "Do you want to know who you are? Don't ask, act. Action will delineate and define you." W. Clement Stone said, "Thinking will not overcome your fear, but action will." You'll find all that you need for this journey inside yourself in the way that you think. You'll translate that thinking into a better life through the actions that you take in this moment, not in the planned actions that you take tomorrow or the next day, but right here, now, in this moment. And those momentary positive actions will drive your line of thinking into the future, which drives your actions, which drives more great thinking and more actions and so on. It's just a cycle that you'll get into. So here's some things to think about. In this video, we looked at your decision to quit drinking, your addiction to alcohol, calling yourself an alcoholic, and some of the other important lessons that you're going to learn throughout this course. We saw that it's completely up to you how you think and how you act. How you think leads to your actions, which leads to your thinking, which leads to your actions. It's a vicious circle or a vigorous circle, depending on what way you look at it. So think about what ways you think about alcohol. So how do you think about alcohol in your life? Can you see how your alcohol thoughts lead to your alcohol actions? Now, we'll talk about this a bit more in later videos when we talk about triggers. Open your eyes to how many people around you are not drinking. Just have a look and see what people are drinking. And you'll notice that a lot of people are not actually drinking alcohol, that they're drinking water or something else. What's happening in your mind and your body when you drink, when you get drunk? That's an important one to do. In the last video, we took a look at speaking to your doctor before you start out on this journey and some of the reasons why you should, and some of the reasons, that you should think about being able to do this on your own. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the catalyzing events in your life that force you to start thinking about your alcohol use. William James said, "To study the abnormal is the best way of understanding the normal." I don't know exactly when it was that I started drinking alcohol every day. I think I'd reached a stage where I just found it hard to relax without having a couple of drinks, a couple of cans of beer or a couple of glasses of wine. At that stage, I know that I needed alcohol. I needed alcohol to do some of the just basic everyday things like relaxing or having fun or just sleeping. Now, when I was young, before I started boozing, I never had any problems with sleeping. Now I had to drink, and I'm sure that you can appreciate that in your own life. If I didn't have my ration of beer or wine before I went to bed at night, I'd be tossing and turning for most of the night. Now, did I drink all the time, every day? No. I often took days off, even towards the end. And sometimes I didn't drink for maybe 2 or 3 days. Often just life got in the way of drinking. I couldn't drink because I had to do something else. I had to go to work. I had to get a contract out. I had to, do a lot of stuff that I couldn't afford to be drunk or to have a hangover to deal with the next day. So I could curtail it in those times. I could stop drinking. At other times, I didn't drink because I had to prove myself that I could stay away from the booze. I wanted to sort of displace any fears that I was turning into an alcoholic. And my logic was really simple. If you're an alcoholic, you can't go even one day without drink. Therefore, if I could last a day or two without alcohol, even if it was only once in a blue moon, it was proof that I had everything in my life under control, that I was handling my boozing. So what finally made me want to stop? What was my push? What was that catalyzing moment? In all the time since I've been running alcoholmastery.com, I've just come to realize that there are so many reasons behind someone deciding that just enough's enough. No matter the reason, the decision sort of always comes very easily. There is this one catalyzing moment that people say, right, you know, I'm done. I have to change. Now, the push to quit comes after a lot of hiding from the fact that there was even a problem in the first place. And that's completely understandable. What we're doing is normal. It's considered normal. We're just doing what everybody else is doing. And we know the ones that have the problem with alcohol. We can see them a mile away. We know the alcoholics. They're the ones who are sleeping rough in doorways, or they're living in shelters. They're the ones who've lost everything to the demon drink. They're the ones who have lost their families, their friends, their jobs, their money, their dignity, their pride. You know, eventually we start to see the cracks in our own lives. We might not see that alcohol has anything to do with these cracks. You know, we start to look elsewhere, to look outside of ourselves. You know, it's the economy, stupid. We're just stressed. We're depressed. It's just a hard life. You know, alcohol is the answer. It's not the problem. So, what are the catalysts that push you to understand what's going on in your own life? What are the things in your life that ultimately force you to see the truth, to own up to the truth, to take responsibility? You know, maybe it's a health scare. Maybe you've had something, you've gone to the doctor and you've got a pain in your side that won't go away. You don't feel so hot. You feel run down. You tell your doctor what's going on. He examines you and he starts to give you some worrying home truths about yourself and about what you're doing to yourself. And maybe your hangovers are lasting more than a day or two, maybe even stretching into 2 or 3 days. That's what was happening to me. You might have reached a stage where your hangovers are becoming just completely unbearable. Maybe you've reached a stage where you have to have a drink during the day just to feel some relief, just to feel normal. Now, some of my hangovers were spilling into 2 or 3 days, like I've said, and they were horrible, they were terrible. I was, some of the times I literally thought that I was about to expire, to die, Now, you might be starting to experience problems in your relationships. Maybe your husband or your wife is saying that they just can't stand this anymore, that things have gone on for too long and that your drinking is starting to interfere with your normal family life. You always seem to be drunk in the evenings, the weekends are a total loss, and your partner is just saying, look, enough is enough. They can't go on the way that they've been going. Either the alcohol goes or the relationship goes. Now, any drug taking is a selfish act. Only you get the benefits from the drug, but everyone else is still affected by it. They're affected through the money that you spend, the time that you spend on it, the time that you spend in the stupor, and the time that you spend recovering from the toxic poisoning, the hangover. They're affected by the long-term consequences of your decision to do drugs, the opportunity costs of what might have been, and the things that you could have done if you weren't spending the time and money and your life on this drug. Now, maybe you've also gotten into trouble with the law. This was also one of mine. Your catalyst could have happened after being stopped by the police while you were drunk behind the wheel of your car. You were loaded with a big fine. You lost your license, and you've had to have the shame of standing in front of a packed courthouse while the judge delivers his sentence. Now, I'll talk in a moment about my own brush with the law, my own stupidity over many years, and my final comeuppance. First of all, with many people, the realization about what they're doing to themselves dawns on them after just a very small event. It's an event that might not necessarily be earth-shattering in its impact. In most cases, it's something just insignificant in the grand scheme of things. This same situation might have happened before, maybe even many times before, without any realization or revelation that anything is wrong. But this time, it's different. Now you can feel the full force of the impact, and it's just changing the way that you think about alcohol in your life, about you drinking alcohol. Now, your personal tipping point might be just one in a long line of incidents and happenings. But this is the one event that finally opens your eyes to the life that you've been living, what you've done to yourself, to those people around you, and what you have to look forward to if you carry on as you've been doing, if you don't stop using alcohol. Now, understanding what has caused you to question your drinking is very important to you as a person, as a drinker. I can tell you about what caused me to stop, which, I'll talk about in the next video. But at the end of the day, this is going to have no impact on you. My life and what caused me to stop drinking, all those reasons of mine. What will impact on you is your very personal reasons. Like I said, this might be only a small event, relatively speaking, but that small event is going to have a big impact on your emotions, on how you feel about yourself and what you're doing to yourself, and how you're living your life, basically, how you're influencing the lives of those people around you. Now, this is important to understand and connect with, because it's going to form one of the cornerstones of your motivations as you move forward. When you feel uncomfortable with your cravings, when you feel like this is too much for you to handle, you can look at these reasons, look back on the reasons why you're stopping as an impetus to stay on the right path, as a motivation to stay on the right path. After you've done a few weeks or months, once the first flush of this motivating spirit has worn off, these events are going to bolster your determination never to look back. So here's some things that you can think about. In this video, we looked at the catalyzing events in your life that led you to first question your drinking, then to come to the conclusion that you basically had to do something about it. Now, these events might have been earth-shattering in their impact on your life or someone else's life that is close to you, but they don't necessarily have to be. They may have been relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, but major in the sense of their emotional impact that they've had on you. So just ask yourself, what's happening in your life because of your drinking? What are the things that are happening now that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been drinking? What caused you to question your drinking? How did you feel about yourself? How did this one event, if it was one event, affect the other people in your life? How did this one event impact on other areas of your life? Now, many people refuse to face up to what alcohol is doing to them or to their lives because they have genuine fears about what will happen once they take that big leap. Now, the ideal situation would be to open your eyes on that first morning, knowing that the alcohol is gone, along with all the pain and all the suffering that you've been going through up until this moment. You don't have any fear about what you're going to do now. Instead, you're looking forward to the life that you've just gifted yourself. Now, you've finally reached the conclusion that alcohol is causing you a lot of pain. You've made your decision to stop drinking alcohol, and that's it. You never look back. You move on with your life, integrating new ways of doing things, new ways of living, better ways of having fun, enjoying your life. I've been right where you are now. I've had to make all those hard decisions. I've had to push myself through those bad feelings of insecurity, fear. I've doubted a lot of the choices that I've made, second guessing myself. So I know what you're going through. Now, what I've learned over the 3 years since I stopped drinking and what I teach is that you're the one who's in control, right? You're in control of putting the stuff into your mouth, of putting the alcohol into your mouth, and you're also in control of not putting it in. You're in control of the choices that you make, including how your quit is going to affect you physically and mentally. Your strength doesn't come from what you can do, it comes from overcoming the things that you couldn't do, right? So the biggest lesson that I've learned about alcohol is that it's all in your mind. Now that might sound very strange because we're led to believe that alcohol addiction is a physical addiction. And yes, there are some physical elements to this, but I'm going to go through a lot of that in the course. This is not about a physical disease. It's not about some physical rogue gene that you've inherited from your parents. And it's not about being trapped forever inside this body of an alcoholic, right? This is a habit that we're talking about. A bad habit, granted, but it's a habit nonetheless. Now, all your habits, including this one, are constructed in your mind one action at a time, one behavior at a time. And all your habits, including this one, can be deconstructed in your mind one action at a time. Now, in How to Stop Drinking Alcohol, I'm going to teach you some of the mindsets that will help you to develop these habit creating and breaking skills and strength. If you can convince your mind, your body is going to follow. It's as simple as that. Now, I've been scared. I've reluctantly accepted that alcohol drinking was getting the best of me. Now, before I began my journey, I was afraid to quit, definitely, 100%. It took me many years to even admit to myself that drinking alcohol was causing me problems. I spent countless of those years just trying to find this happy medium between carrying on drinking and keeping the consequences of that drinking to an absolute minimum. You know, I've tried so many different solutions to try and reduce the effects of my drinking in the short term and the long term. I've tried drinking lots of water along with my alcohol, trying to eat while I drank, switching to light alcohol versions, or taking in only enough money to the pub so that I could only afford a couple of pints. I've tried spreading my drinking out throughout the evening. I've tried diluting my drinks. I've tried keeping a diary of all my drinks, counting and measuring. I've set myself up for goals and allocations, rewards and punishments. And none of it works because it took away from my reason to drink, which was to feel drunk. Now, none of it works because alcohol is not just a drink like we think it is. Alcohol is a drug. The human body has a consistent and inflexible way of dealing with this drug. It's called tolerance. Now, tolerance means the more you use this drug, the more you can tolerate. The more you need to use the drug to get the same buzz. Do you understand what I mean? It's very straightforward. So all my efforts to moderate my alcohol use always failed. It was all to no avail. Trying to moderate using this drug for the rest of your life is a nightmare situation, and it's just a fool's errand. If I could go back now with what I know now, I wouldn't waste a single second trying to control the uncontrollable. The best we can ever do with any drug use is to try and manage the losses as best we can. There are no real gains from using alcohol, only sort of momentary diversions away from the reality of what we're actually doing to ourselves. Now, the only thing I never considered throughout all those years of trying to moderate was stopping permanently. And the reason I never considered that was because of the way we think about alcohol. We're not so much addicted to the alcohol, but we're addicted to the alcohol thinking that is so firmly established in our cultures. It's this alcohol thinking, this alcoholic thinking, that I'm going to try and change throughout this course. Now, I've had my stock of excuses. I drank to be social, I drank because I was bored, I drank because I deserved a little relaxation, a little reward, a little pleasure, and on, right? For every reasonable logic excuse to stop, I had an excuse to continue. Now, when I finally came to the conclusion that there was no way I could control my drinking, that moderation would never work for me, I had this light bulb moment, right? I knew then that the only way that I could sort of change my life and get out of the mess that I was in was to stop permanently. It was the only way forward. Now, I have to be honest, I was frightened, right? I was frightened of where my life was at that moment. I was scared about where my life was going if I didn't stop, and scared of what would happen to me if I did stop. Now, I believed I was an alcoholic, or, at least I believed that I was this watered down version of what I thought an alcoholic was. I was afraid of what people would think of me, what they would say about me. I was afraid of how I would cope without the booze, how I could live my life without the booze. That was my biggest fear, I suppose. Never being able to take a drink ever again, never, right? No matter what happened. I felt so out of control at that stage of my life. I felt like a victim. And the more I thought about it, the more I looked around for information, looked online, the more of a victim I actually felt. Now, the fact is, with that 2020 hindsight, in the bag, quitting alcohol has not only saved my life, it's given me the life that I always wanted to live. Now, I remember vaguely what my life was like before I started using alcohol. I was a child, I was a teenager, and life was wonderful. Now, 3 years later, after I've stopped, 3 years without poisoning myself with this drug, and I've got that life back, right? And I've no intentions of ever letting go again. So let's get on to the details of the How to Stop Drinking Alcohol video course. What do you actually get? Well, physical terms, there are 87 videos with over 12 hours viewing time. As a bonus, I've also included an option to download the audio for each video, so you can listen to that whenever you want. As far as the course content goes, I want to share with you that there is a way of thinking about alcohol and stopping using alcohol that will only make it much easier for you to stay away from the booze. It's going to transform how you think about alcohol drinking, and the role of alcohol in your life, right? Now, the truth about alcohol is, it's already out there. It's staring us in the face. We just don't see it because of the way that it's been concealed by years of sort of attractive brainwashing. Now, my main task throughout this course will be to expose and to try and break down as much of that brainwashing as I can. You'll learn how to see alcohol for what it really is, a debilitating and a deadly poison. We'll take a look at how you can best manage your thinking and your emotions about alcohol. We'll consider why it's so important to understand the reasons behind your drinking and the reasons for you wanting to quit. Now, this course also digs into the language of addiction, those words and phrases that will keep you locked into that alcoholic type mentality, right? We'll examine some of the addiction language that you might be using right now to describe yourself or your habit, words that are putting unnecessary roadblocks in your way, in the path of your new journey, of the new life that you want to take. Now, we'll look at some of the more common and potent obstacles that are standing in your way and how to avoid them. This course will also show you how to gain control of yourself and keep that control consistently during the all-important first few weeks and months of your quit. We'll also look at how to deal with the people around you, those who still drink, especially your family and friends. We'll go over what to expect from your recovery and some of the more important mindsets that will keep your recovery time and the discomfort that you feel to an absolute minimum. I'll show you some of the more common fears about quitting drinking and how to beat them. We'll explore what you can expect once you quit and how to speed up the whole process. You'll also learn how to think about and handle your past mistakes, and we'll face that big elephant in the room. Are you an alcoholic? Now, a large part of the material is of course going to be around mindsets and how you think. You'll discover the 4 essential mindsets about quitting alcohol for good. And the material in this course will also give you the knowledge and the skills to break or create any habit in your life. These are basically the same fundamental core skills, and they'll help you to live the life that you were meant to live. I built this course to sort of try and change the way that you think about drinking alcohol. Your drinking thinking keeps you firmly traveling on this path of destruction, and it's only through changing that drinking thinking that you'll be able to truly leave alcohol firmly behind you and forge a better path through your life. You know, this is all stuff that I wish I'd have known 30 years ago. Like I said, I wouldn't have touched a drop. You know, hindsight being 20/20, all that kind of stuff, right? But I'm glad that I know this stuff now. Better late than never. Now, as I said, there's 87 videos, 87 audios, and for a limited time, I'm going to throw in the original audiobook version of How to Stop Drinking Alcohol as another bonus for free. That's an extra 3.5 hours of content, bringing the total length of material to over 27 hours. So what should you do now? If you'd like to buy this course and reboot your life, click on the buy button below and you'll get immediate access to all 27 hours of life-changing content. And as with anything else that's sold from the Alcohol Mastery website, you have 30 days to go through all the material. If for any reason, you know, once you've completed the course, you're not fully satisfied with the material, or you find that you haven't changed the way that you think about your alcohol drinking, whatever reason, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So I'll see you on the inside. I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery. Onwards and upwards.